Hello, this is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for Brut.
Do you think that there's one thing that President Trump did right?
So I think one thing that the president did right is he correctly identified a lot of the core problems in the United States and in American democracy. And because he identified those problems, he leaned into them and articulated them and condemned some of the most broken parts of our system in very searing ways, which is, I think, a large part of what sailed him to election. The problem, of course, is that his solutions are backwards, ineffective at best, and profoundly harmful at worst. And so I think the thing that he did correct is identify issues like the corruption of money in politics, identifying that working people have gotten shortchanged, and that things like our trade deals and our health care are broken systems and have been broken in the past. And as a consequence, that recognition of that truth created a lot of political capital. And so in some areas, I think his diagnoses have been a big part of what sailed him to victory, but of course not all of them. And his solutions have created a large degree of suffering.
One thing the current crop of Democratic presidential candidates are doing right, and what's one thing they're doing wrong?
I think one thing that they are doing right is that they are acknowledging communities that have historically been ignored in the U.S. political process. And it's a smart thing to do. People think that it's just a gesture or homage to social justice, but it's a real movement to expand the electorate, which I think is a winning strategy to make sure that we continue to win elections. So I think that's one thing that they're doing right. One thing that I think they may be doing wrong is paying too close attention to lobbyists and corporate interests and the most wealthy in American society. And we need to think of elections as just part of social movements, not the end and goal of social movements.
What did you want to become when you were a kid? You said you've never wanted to join politics.
Well, the first thing I ever remember wanting to be, well, when I was 4, I wanted to be an Olympic swimmer. But the first real career I remember wanting to be was actually a scientist. And I entered college actually as a pre-medical student after winning some science competitions, some global science competitions in high school. So my first passion was medicine and science, and then public health and community organizing.
And are you happy now in your daily life being a politician? What do you miss in your personal and professional life?
Yeah, I mean, I am happy now. It is very overwhelming, and I quite literally went from being an anonymous waitress to a very well-known politician almost overnight. And so that adjustment was very difficult and quite challenging, even just from a logistical level. But aside from that, the mission and the work that I do is something that I love, and I gain a lot of meaning from it. So I'm quite happy now. But things that I miss, you know, kind of that anonymity, the ability to walk into a bar with some friends and hang out and go to happy hour and go to, you know, my corner store, my sweatpants and things like that. But I wouldn't trade it for the world.
What's unexpected about Congress or Washington?
I think something that was unexpected was how fear-driven a lot of Washington can be. There are so many decisions that are made out of the fear of what we have to lose instead of an assertive place of strength, of really determining what it is we're going to take and what we're going to gain and achieve for working people. So sometimes I think that kind of timidity is something that was very surprising to me in a place with so much power. But I'm also, one of the things that surprised me, that was very inspiring, and in no small part thanks to that, is also how easily things can change, how quickly I think things can change, even though it seems on the outside to be very entrenched. I do believe that when popular movements really begin to coalesce and achieve real gains, that we can achieve electoral change very quickly.
How have your family, friends, and partner taken your rise? Were they expecting something like this from you? Or is it something they're wrapping their head around still? What are your conversations with them like?
I don't think anybody could have expected something to this degree and magnitude, but I'm very thankful for my close friends and my family, because they still treat me the same as they did before. And so that is where I go and find grounding, and when I just want to be treated as a normal person, a friend, a sister, a daughter, a cousin, I always kind of come home to them. And so they've been pretty good. It's a little weird. My mother doesn't watch news so much on TV. She can read about it and stuff, but aside from that, aside from the weirdness of scrolling through your feed and seeing your friend on there, it's been, they've been a profound source of strength for me.
So they don't gawk when they see thousands of retweets on something you
I mean, I think sometimes we joke about it, or sometimes I'll talk to them and I'll just we're in a conversation, and I'll pop off, and then I'll just tweet something off, and we're just hanging out, and then it's thousands of retweets later, they look at me and they said, "You were tweeting when that happened?" So it's fun.
Looking back, is there anything you would have done differently?
Anything that I would have done differently? I don't think so. It's not to say that I don't make mistakes. I make mistakes every day. We all make mistakes every day. But if we don't make mistakes, then we have no real way of learning and improving and iterating and getting better. And so I don't really think that there's anything I would have done differently. I would drink more water. I would work out a little bit more. I would take care of my diet a little bit better. But aside from those things that I think everyone, to one degree or another would do, I don't regret it, yeah.
What is the one moment in your life that really changed you, whether it was more recently or when you were a kid? What do you think was one transformative moment for you?
I think one transformative moment for me was when I was about 19. I was studying in college, and I spent about 4 months living in West Africa, in Niger. And I learned so much from that experience, and learning from the community there, that I think it truly transformed and globalized and put into perspective the context of my life.
What are you hoping to achieve here in Copenhagen? How do we save the planet?
Well, that's a very good question. I think it's one that we come together collaboratively and through a process. But one reason that I'm here, first of all, is to acknowledge that we do need to come together as a world, not just organize our countries, but organize ourselves as a global community. There are multiple ways that we can address the climate crisis. And one is by increasing the burdens on working people, and another is focusing on the consumption of working people, and the other is by focusing on the production of our worst polluters and largest corporations. And so one thing that I would encourage all global leaders to do as we look at ways to solve the climate crisis is to shift and really focus on putting pressure and heat on the largest producers of fossil fuels and emissions in the world.
You're abroad for the first time for work. What struck you most on this trip?
I think one thing that has struck me so much is, well, I come from New York, and so folks here in Denmark are very polite, but overall, I think the amount of activism and enthusiasm here is so exciting and exhilarating, and I'm profoundly inspired by the advanced level to which the climate discourse has reached in Denmark and throughout Europe. And I hope and know that we are reaching that kind of sophistication in the United States. And also, you know, hopefully to take some of the lessons of Denmark back to the United States, the fact that we can have nice things, we can guarantee healthcare as a right, we can invest in public education, we can live as an advanced, modern, and civilized society, and the sky won't fall down.
Why should other countries in the world play ball with the US? The US has pretty much backtracked from every major agreement the world has struck, the Iran nuclear deal, the climate accord. Why should any country take the US seriously now or have any good faith in any deal going forward?
It's an excellent question, and there is no doubt that this current administration has profoundly destabilized the global order, and they have done a profound amount of damage to the trustworthiness of the United States, at least so long as this administration is in power. But one thing that I think is profoundly important to remember is that the same people's movements that have always existed in the United States continue to exist, and we continue to be a majority of the United States. Our president was not elected with a majority of American support, American voter support. And so I think it's profoundly important to remember that the people's support and the American people, those movements that we connect with, in addition to municipal governments, mayors, cities, governors, etc., are willing to uphold our agreements. And just because the administration has pulled out of things like the Paris Agreement doesn't mean that our mayors and our governors have.
Your dad passed away when you were in college. He never got the chance to see your dramatic rise. What do you think he would have told you if he was here today?
Well, he was a big kind of jokester, and he would prank and laugh a lot. And so I think that he would find all this very amusing because he did very much instill somewhat stubborn ideals in me as a child, and I think he would be very amused to find out where that has kind of led. But I think he would be, he'd be proud, but he would probably make fun of me every once in a while too.